Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Know Your Gear podcast QA live number episode. Episode sounds better, doesn't it? 259. It sounds official. Like this is official. Anyways, I hope everybody had a great week. I've been playing catch up all week from the fact that I was gone for 7 days to Sweetwater. I don't know if you guys caught that there. I was there physically 7 days. So it was a long trip. It was good, but it was a long trip. So today we're back to normal. We could talk about anything we want. Probably guitar stuff, just because that seems to be the theme. Nice hat. Yeah, this is another prototyping hat. I'm giving it a shot. Want to see how people react to it, and if they're like, "Hey, man, your logo's off the side. It's making me crazy." I don't know if slowly this show is just becoming a thing where I talk about guitars and check people's OCD. I don't know, but it feels like that's happening more and more. All right. Okay, so let's get into some stuff. We have some stuff. You guys came early, left questions, left subjects, so we could talk about that. And one of them is self-serving, so I just want to hit that one. And this one, as I say it, this one came from Joe Bogikes. I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure, but I know Jay. It's Jay. I don't want to say Joe. Jay, I want to say Bogikes. I think that sounds right. Bogikes. I like that. He says, thank you for taking the time to speak with Luke and me last week. Very kind of you, Phil. Phil seems to have a great personality. Seems to. I just like to poke fun of myself whenever I can, in person and going along with the knowledge online. You know what? It was great meeting you guys. It was great meeting all of you, especially, not especially anyone, just especially all the circumstances how I met you guys. I had lunch with Steve. That was fantastic. You guys gave me Iron Maiden beers, which was also fantastic. It was an interesting week. I got to drive around in a gold Mercedes, which is a weird story to tell people. I don't mean like gold color, like gold wrapped Mercedes, so it looks like it's gold plated. I met so many of the members out there, I guess I should say the viewers or the community at that place at Sweetwater. I never thought it would happen. It was more than I ever met at NAMM. So I kind of felt like after a while I was like, I wonder if it's just because we've all been like kind of trapped in houses. Like, you just feel like more excited when you see each other. Like, whoa, people. So it was great meeting all of you. I tried to spend as much time with every single person and try to be in that moment with you guys every time I can. And I think a lot of you were so kind because you could tell some days I was glossed over. I was just out. I was working. Just for the record, I don't want to say that they made me or had me work these hours. I chose to do this. I was basically 7 to 7 every day, doing those hours, and then some nights staying up in the hotel room editing and doing other stuff. So it was long days. Plus I was a little jet lagged, which was shocking to me. I've flown to Europe and stuff. I've flown places where, it's 13 hours or whatever, 10, 13 hours ahead, whatever. And the jet lag seems pretty bad, but it was only a 3-hour difference. But that 3 hours seemed to it was just enough to make my days all out of whack. And then by the time I got it synced up again, it was time to get back on a plane and go back. But thank you to everyone that said hi. And also thank you to everyone that kind of messaged me afterwards saying, hey, I saw you, but I didn't want to bother you. Look, like I always say, I'll tell you guys this again. If I look tired, you're just going to have to deal with that. I mean, I try to put, as much personality forward as I can, but sometimes I'm just a little wiped. But never be concerned with that stuff because ultimately, like I said, first of all, it's just reassuring to hear, people, how I meet you guys. And, I don't see you guys. You see me, and I see this lens. And so when I see you guys in public and I get to talk to you, it really puts faces. I feel like now when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to people instead. Otherwise, it really kind of tests your sanity. Like, I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to nobody, but I'm talking to you guys. So yeah, please come up to me. Even if I'm busy, or if I look busy, keep that in mind. It's more of a look. I look more busy than I am. Cause It probably helps sometimes, to be honest with you. A bunch of you probably helped me take a much needed break, because sometimes you burn out from the content you're creating and stuff, and you just can't help it. You just want to keep going, but you wear down. I did a video, and you guys will see it. I look like I'm about to pass out in the video. I've been debating on whether or not I want to do some creative editing, because I look like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I look a little wiped out. Even I could tell. So, all right. Yeah, Mike David says the look busy is a strategy of George Costanza. Oh yeah, that's right. That I love that episode. Yeah, that's me. I'm just looking like, oh, he looks like he's up to something. Yeah, maybe. So let's get into some guitar related stuff. Okay. Okay. This is an easy one. I wanted to hit it. Rick says, "Hey, greetings from Northern Maine. Phil, I'm looking to do some busking. I am looking at a Cube Street. Any feedback?" And he said, "Sorry about the play on words." No. The Cube Street is a fantastic item. In fact, think of this. Roland is kind of now disbanded all their amplifiers except for the Cube Street. They even got rid of the Mini Cube, or the Micro Cube, which is one of my favorite. They've gotten rid of that because they're really kind of playing into the Katana, which is great amps. Katana, and then the Cube Street. Cube Street's a fantastic amp. If I had suggestions of any other amps, it would just be for the sake of giving you suggestions of other amps. I don't know if I could say that they're better or worse. Cube Street will take care of everything you need. The only suggestion I have to you, which is why I wanted to answer the question, is hanging out with Dovidas all week. Really taught me that if you're going to do busking, man, film yourself and put that out there. It's crazy to see what he's accomplished in the years of me knowing him, beyond comprehension, to be honest with you. I mean, he's very deserving of all of that success he's has, but definitely it makes me really realize how much people love that stuff. So you really should think about doing that. Major Upgrade says, "Is that a first act over there behind Phil?" No, but I don't know which guitar you're referring to. But no, the answer is no, there's not a first act behind me. But there is some guitars that I'm working on videos on. And David says, Roland doesn't make the JC120 motor. That's not, the JC would not be considered a Cube series. I don't know if they make the JC120 or not. I believe they do. They just don't make the Cube series. I might have misspoke earlier and said Roland doesn't make guitar amps. I meant Roland doesn't make the Guitar Cube series anymore, which was the number one selling amp for them series until they hit the Katana. So sorry about that if I misspoke, but that's what it is, the Cube series. And I wouldn't recommend the JC120 for busking, but I guess you could use whatever. You got an extension cord, you can make anything work. Rick just says he thanks me for the answer. Luke says Dovey is the next Post Malone. Dovey is. I feel like I could make a living just telling you guys what hanging out with Dovidas is like. It's a blast. You cannot have a bad time with that person. It just is impossible. It's impossible. So I just want to let you know, it might not be funny to you guys, but it was funny to me. Wednesday, I went to bed. I was wiped. I'd been there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday, I was wiped. I talked to my wife and about 8 o'clock at night, Indiana time. And then I'm going to go to bed early tonight. I got a long day tomorrow. I went to bed. I was asleep maybe 30, 40 minutes, about 9 o'clock at night. My phone rings. I thought it was my wife calling me right back. It's like, oh, what's going on? It's Dovidas. I pick it up, and he's like, Phil, it's your birthday. Get ready. I'm being there in 8 minutes. And he wasn't kidding. He picked me up 8 minutes, and we went and celebrated my birthday. It's not my birthday, but apparently that didn't matter. I still got ice cream and sparklers. Robert says Ryan of Six Cycle Hum was just showing you live. He was just showing me live? Nah, I wish I had a picture. I'd show him live. Scott says, who's Dovey? Just look up Dovidas. You can't miss it. 250 million views. He's yes. And Matt says, Dovidas deadlifts 500 pounds. Yes, I saw that. I actually got to see him do that. It's crazy. All right. Let's get back to the subjects. Okay. This one's come from 3J Music, who says, "Hey Phil, I noticing not a question, but he's starting to notice a trend on Reverb. My last 3 purchases waited days until contacting and to ship. One of them I had to request a refund due to no contact. So I don't know if it's a trend. It might be something you experience over and over again. So to you, it feels like a trend, but it is something I've experienced from time to time. I couldn't tell you. I feel like 1 in 10 seems pretty safe for me to say. Like every once in a while I order something and then I get that response like, I'm out of town. When I get back next Friday, I'll ship your item. And it's a bummer. And I wish, because there's actually a thing, by the way, I think on Reverb in the settings, you can go and put yourself on vacation mode. So if somebody purchases this, it'll tell them this person's currently not available to ship to a certain day. And they didn't do that. I've never really, I mean, I'm bummed. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I mean, I feel like wiped because I think most of the time for me, purchasing on Reverb is like I've made the purchase. Once I've decided to do this, it's like I've done it and now I'm ready for the reward. Because, you know, once you kind of, it's like, I'm in the moment, let's do this. And then you're like, you're not getting it for 2 weeks. And you're like, okay, that's, but I know it's a bummer. If you've experienced it a couple times, a couple different buyers, that sucks. But it's not something I've noticed as a trend myself. I don't know if you guys in the comments, if you noticed it. But like I said, I have seen it time to time. And again, just so you guys know, in case you're, ever having that experience, you can go in and put in like a vacation. There's like a vacation mode, just like with your email, to let people know, hey, this person is not going to be able to ship to this date because they're out of town. That sometimes happens. Sometimes you list it and then sometimes you have to leave town or something. I don't know. You're not available and you don't take down the auction. You can put that in there as well. You don't have to just take it down if you don't want to. Okay. This one I don't know. I like questions like this. There's 2 that I have no idea what the answer is, but I want to hit the question. I see it and I kind of want to talk about it. Sometimes it's not about giving you guys an answer. It's about talking about a subject. Polly says, "Hey Phil, is there much tonal difference between a mini humbucker and the single coil size humbuckers? Think like a little 59. There is. I just never really tested to see how much difference, but I noticeably notice a difference when I put a mini humbucker in something, which I'm a big fan of that pickup as well, just like the P90s. There's my thought process without a strict A/B testing, kind of dissecting it. The things I think would be different would be twofold. One, obviously, as you expand the field, in other words, the area in which the pickup can detect the string, and I guess that's the best way to put it. You're going to increase the EQ because you're going to get more of the low part of the string and more of the high part of the string. Excuse me. That's one thing, but it's not a big difference between the mini and the single coil size humbucker. What could be a bigger difference is the magnet itself. Bigger magnet is going to have an effect and or more wire. Like why a P90 single coil has so much more going for it than just a traditional single coil strap pickup, because not only does it have more wire, it has a bigger magnet and it's a bar magnet versus slug magnet. So there's differences all across the board. So my answer to your question is I would imagine there's a tonal difference, but I would imagine, again, I don't know if I would want to have you test the 2 and have me detect which one's which. But I do know that for some reason I seek out those different types of pickups and guitars. And mini humbuckers are just a type of pickup I really like, especially in the neck, and especially in like a telly. I love that pickup. The other question I didn't have an answer for that I thought was great, because it was the craziest question I think I've got on the show. Crazy mean out there, interesting, and I loved it, which was this was from JP Del Mundo, who says, "Hey Phil, what type of clothing is best to wear if you want to wear out the nitro finish naturally but faster? Love the channel." Interesting question. I never thought about that. And I was thinking about it, so I was prepping for the show. And like I said, I grabbed the early questions and throw them in and paste them in. And I was thinking about, because I've been to shops where, obviously custom shops for manufacturers, and then of course little luthery shops where they've relic guitars. And I've seen all the ways they do it. And what I really notice is sandpaper is how they kind of do everything, or steel wool, like things like that, things that basically are abrasive, but just a very small amount. So I would imagine the best way to do it would be wear something that has as much friction to it as possible. So you would have to figure out what clothing has friction, makes the most friction, and that should be something to figure out. That's the easy part. So that's what I was going to say. If it's something you need to do, yeah. Somebody says a burlap sack. Sorry, Silver Paradox. Wear 400 grit shirts. See, that's why I wanted to do this question, right? Because it was just this, like, it's such a great question in the idea. I understand, right? I can see the logic. You're like, hey, I want to wear out my guitar. I want it to be relic. I don't want to pay somebody to do it. I want to do it. I don't want to wait 20 years. How do I speed up this process? And it will look natural, of course. I would say do what everybody else does. Wear a big belt buckle and wear some kind of long sleeve shirt that's as abrasive as can be, that you can tolerate, and do that. Somebody says hemp. Sure. Like I said, I would imagine anything you would be afraid to actually put against your finish if you wanted to damage it or scratch it. That's what I would wear. It'd be the opposite. Somebody says Velcro. Sure. Right. I could see that. So Tony says, if you're super hairy, just take your shirt off. Actually, I would think it could probably work the opposite way. It could actually make it easier, because you think your skin would literally wear that stuff off. You ever seen here when you go to, when I was a kid, you would go to souvenir shops in Arizona, and they would always have worry stones, which are like stones where they said, you rub on them and you wear them down over time, and they always had a spot worn in them already. So obviously, time and friction, man, that's the key. So, but that would cause the damage for sure. But like I said, when you watch them do it, it's always just some kind of sandpaper or steel wool, and they just go to town. They just do it's not so much that they're trying to they don't really make the damage soft, in my experience watching them. They kind of damage it, and then they use something to smooth the damage over to look faded and worn in. So it kind of goes backwards than what I've always perceived it would be when I would watch them. Okay. You know what I didn't do? I'll do it right now. Okay. Let's pull this up. We have a question from Jared. Jared says, hey, about a month ago, I asked about a good pickups for tech death metal and Clarity, and you recommended active pickups. You were right. Oh, cool. It says, I love my guitar tone now. I've been loving my Legator, Ghost 8. That's awesome. Like I said, it's always great to hear if a piece of advice worked out. You never know. I'm always shooting from the hip because I don't know the backstory and what you're looking for, but that's the benefit of being around this stuff and musicians all day. You can usually kind of guess and glean a good idea. So I thought that would work out. I'm glad it worked out for you. Thank you so much for telling us that it worked out. That was very kind of you. Derek says, new guitar day. I got a Gibson ES335 2 weeks back. So it was not technically today, not new guitar day, but I'm with you. Very different tone and feel from my Les Pauls. Yeah, isn't it crazy? If you really think about an ES335, it's essentially just a Les Paul with hollow sides and bigger. But at the core of it, it's really just a Les Paul. And it's weird that it has any different tone. If you really think about it, it really should be as close to Les Paul as possible. And sometimes I think they are pretty close. But he's like, but yeah, the feel to me is the massive difference. It just feels like a different instrument because of the size and the body. He says, what song styles would bring out the most for my 335? Thoughts on calibrated T-type pickups? I don't really have any specific thoughts on the T-type pickups. But on the 335, I bought one because of blues. You know what I mean? I found that there's the genre that I like to play. I like to play everything, but there's a genre that I really like to play. I play it the most, right? And I have a guitar and I'll play that. And then I use other guitars to pull the other genres out of me. So for instance, like, you grab that shredder 80s guitar, and that's how I have some fun playing that style of stuff. It's not really my style to play. It's not something I play every day, but when I want to play it, that will pull it out of me. The 335, when I got a 335, was exactly that. I was going for that. I wanted to pick it up, and I knew that when you pick up certain guitars, because that's just how it works for me, you pick up guitars. Some guitars make you play surf rock, some plays make you play rock, make you play blues, and it just pulls it out of you. And that's what's fun and exciting. And I know deep down you could just do it. I know I can play blues on an Ibanez 80s shredder guitar, but I just find that it's just so effortless. It's like as soon as I pick up this guitar, that's where my brain goes, and that's where my playing goes. And it's nice to like walk in somebody else's shoes. And essentially that's what I'm doing. I have I feel like, especially as you guys know, a lot of you know, I'm a bass player. So as a bass player or as a rhythm hack guitar player that plays backup when people, play, I always feel like I have my comfort zone of what I like to play, and I feel fine at it. But I love this idea of like walking in somebody else's shoes for a minute. It's nice to dream and just be in that moment and go, this is what it would be like if I played this style of music. And that's what I like having those guitars for. It's really great. I kind of liken it to, like, I guess if you saw a really rich guy and he has every kind of car, like a sports car and a race car, sports car, off-road vehicle, beautiful, in-town driving cars, stuff like that. Maybe that's what it's about for them, is different experiences. I don't really need that. But for guitars, that's kind of what it is for me. It's like, sometimes I just want to be somewhere else, in my mind and in the music. And that's what a 335 was to me. That's what it does for me. I pull it up, and the last thing I do is play shred metal on it. Although I'm sure you could. BRMR says, Bummer. I just want to say Bummer. Bummer says, BRMR says, drove to a music store to look at a guitar, listening to your show where you said some of you may be looking to buy a guitar for Father's Day. So I figured if you said it was okay, new guitar day, Eastman T59V. Thanks. That's a great guitar. I want an Eastman. I've come across a few here and there, and everybody keeps telling me, get an Eastman, get it on the channel. And here's the thing about Eastman. I know deep down I'm going to buy one day, but I'm not going to buy one till I find one. There's certain guitars I don't want to take the chances are. I don't want one that bad. I know I would want one if I could find the right one. So, and the last couple of years with no traveling kind of sucked, but now that I'm back to kind of traveling again, I'm sure I'll find guitars again. Like I was before, I was just buying guitars when I found them and putting them on the channel, and I'm hopefully going back to that. It's a little more fun for me to experience that and bring it to you than it is to play the whole, okay, let's see if it's good, and then I'll do a video about it. Alex wants to know, are good guitars inflation beaters? Example, in 2032. Okay, are you from the future? This is okay. In 2032, will a used 2022 USA Tele get higher dollar amount than the $1,699 paid today for a new one, or can I at least tell my girlfriend that's why I need one? Guitars, here's a weird, strange thing. I remember back in 2004. I remember saying to someone, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I just remember the statement I made. I said, there's like three things that hold value, or more importantly, there's three things that you can leave as an heirloom, besides furniture, right? You think about this. I had a very, this is going to be weird, so just hang with me, guys. I had a very weird experience. So I've lost both my parents, not at the same time, but over a period of time. I lost my father and then my mother. And if you have lost a parent, I don't know, at what age it happens, but if you lose a parent, everything they think that you're going to keep and everything that they want you to have and everything you keep and want to have don't seem to always line up. It's strange what you connect to someone when you lose them. It's weird to me, like, if like me, I always go, when I die, you'll have these guitars. And I know deep down that's not how it's going to work, right? They'll probably keep like my favorite alligator toy. I don't know. I just got one of these. It's a gator toy. But anyways, my point is that, you never know what somebody's going to connect to and what they're going to hold on to and what they're going to find valuable and what they're going to just put in storage, because that's one of the things that's tough about this is you have trouble letting go of things even though you don't know what to do with them. So the reason I tell you that is, you think about that, and then of course you think about not even that extreme as death. You think of just as you get older, you give this to your children or your grandchildren. It's an heirloom. And I used to say back then there was only like 3 things you could really give away, and it was guitars, guns, and watches. And funny enough, watches have kind of gone away. I mean, maybe not expensive, crazy watches, but like you just don't see, like I don't wear a watch. I mean, people don't wear a lot. Now they're wearing an Apple Watch or, some other kind of Fitbit watch. So watches aren't gone. That's not what I'm saying. Because if I say that, you guys are all freak out. There's somebody that collects watches going to lose their mind on me. Like, how could you say such a thing? I love watches, but that's my point. My point is that without a doubt, they're not as valuable today as they were just a decade ago or 2 decades ago. And so my point to your question is that yes, guitars, I don't want to like invest in guitars and you'll beat inflation. That's why I'm being so specific on what I'm about to say. That is, I think, is a bad strategy overall. But if you're asking me, will a guitar go up in value or will it continue to have value forever? That's really the more important thing. It's not how much does it keep. It's not how much value does it keep. It's when does it become unvaluable, not valuable at all. And the truth is never. It doesn't outdate. It doesn't go anywhere. Right? There's a great meme on the internet. If you haven't seen it, it's like a picture of the first like crank phone, and then the picture next to it is like, the old phone, rotary phone in your house, and the next picture is the phone with the buttons in your house, and then the next picture is like the cordless phone. Then the picture is like the cordless brick cell phone, and you get the idea. Then the flip phone, and then the BlackBerry, and now our cell phones. And it's a pictures of all those in the years that they were or the decades they were popular. And then next to them is like a Fender P-Bass, and it's like, and it's just the same P-Bass every year, like still valuable, still the same. And that's what it is. That's what it is to me is, if you're trying to come up with this idea was like, hey, if I buy this Fender American Telly or this Made in Mexico Telly or this Fender thing now in 10 years, is it still value or will it be worth what I paid or more? It is very possible. But the easy question for me to answer is it will be worth something because it will have value as long as people want to make music. And I think that's always going to happen, no matter how much the naysayers say, oh, people, like they always throw things out there. Like they always go, people don't play guitar like they used to. Kids play, music on computers. This is all true, but that being true doesn't make guitar being valuable untrue. It's still valuable. In fact, guitars are think of this, vintage guitars are at the all-time high, and you could argue all the reason that is, but the reality right now is people still like music, and so guitars have value. So I would say as a inflation investment, I don't know if that's the right investment, but I would say if you buy it, will you have it in 10 years? Yes. If you want to keep it in 10 years, yes. It will still work. It will still be, I have no doubt in my mind that if you buy a Fender Telecaster, whether that be a Squier or American one or a custom shop, in 10 years, it will still be working, still have value, and you will still have value for it. And so that's a powerful thing. And I say better than worrying about I know you're not worried about it, but better than worrying about will it go appreciate? It's, think how easy of a purchase it is looking at it that way. I can name 50 things that cost the same I can name 50 things, as I say that, getting cocky, I'm like, maybe 5 things. I can name 10 things that cost $1,700 right now that I think will be worth nothing in 10 years. One is probably the computer you're watching me on right now. So there you go. Alex. Nope, that was Alex. Vimps69 says, Phil, my question last week was jumbled. That's all right, man. My answers are jumbled, so we're on sync. Is there a way to put P90s into an SG standard without having to route out the body? Is there a way to put P90s into an SG standard? So no and yes. I'm going to give you, yes, you can do it. And your question is, without routing? No, you have to route. You have to do it. The P90s are longer. They're thinner but longer, and the longer is the bigger problem, so you have to route it out. I would suggest not to do it, is my suggestion to you. I would just get some kind of P90 humbucker hybrid is, and I've talked about this. I don't like them as much as actual P90s, but they're 90% there, and they're close enough. I have both. I have P90s like in a guitar behind me, and then I think my Charvel's in the corner. He has a P90 humbucker size P90 in the neck, and it works great. I love it for what it is, and it's P90 enough. Like if I played it, I don't think, oh, this is a poor imitation of P90. I think, no, this sounds like a P90. Dan says, I'm playing a gig tomorrow outside in 110 degrees Texas heat. Nice. What precautions should I take with my gear to make sure it's all safe? You know, the thing about gear is your guitar especially, and of course if you're taking a tube amp, think about the sun. The sun's more problematic than the heat. Because the sun, first of all, a couple things happen is the sun can damage your instrument. It could warp your pick guard. It could cause beaming on your guitar at that heat. Think of this, if it's 75 outside, and if it's hitting your guitar just right, it can be problematic. It can hyperheat. I don't know if that's right. Hyperheat. It'll heat your pickups. It feels like it's hyperheating them. It'll heat your pickups up, and if there's wax in there, it can melt out. I've seen that before. I've seen where wax just starts coming out of like the corner of a guitar, out of the pick guard or somewhere, or out of the guitar itself, and just dripping on the ground. And then your pickups they're not potted anymore, and then they get microphonic. So, you know, just be safe. All you got to do is just keep your stuff in the shade, right? Or throw a tarp over it. I know it sounds silly, but throw something over it to, again, keep this direct sunlight off it when you're not using it. That's the big thing. You know, you're going to be standing in that same heat. My usually advice for musical instruments is whatever you can take, they can take, and whatever you wouldn't do, I wouldn't do to your instruments. So that's usually the logic. So if people ask all the time, is this too cold? Is this too hot? And I go, well, if you can handle it, they can handle it. And probably for a little bit longer than you as well. That's a good, just general advice for treating your instruments or your gear is, like I said, try to keep it, you know. That's why, like I've talked about this before. I carry all my guitars in gig bags, which is one of the deficiencies of my reviews, is that you guys constantly are like, I'll talk about a guitar, whether it's expensive or not, and it comes with a gig bag, and you're like, I can't believe it doesn't come with a case. And I always talk about the fact that there's a ton of reasons why I don't use cases, but one of them is that has to do with being in retail for so many years. In retail, you hear a lot of stories about people talking about their guitar getting stolen while it was next to them. Something that, I understand, like, people break into your, people's homes, people steal stuff from their cars. Cars are probably the number one place, I would imagine, and I don't have any statistics, but if I was going to guess where you're going to lose your instruments for theft, number one's going to be a car, and your car is going to get stolen out of the car. But then your house, I would guess, but third is going to be right next to you. Like, literally, you're standing next to it, you're talking, you're not paying attention. And I used to tell everybody, I put all my instruments in gig bags, and I hold them on my shoulder like a purse. And I hold them just like a woman kind of holds, hey, guys can have purses too. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Just like a purse. You put your fingers through the strap and you kind of hold it like this, and you do it with backpacks too. That's how I hold my gig bag. In fact, at Sweetwater, if any of you saw me, I was kind of straddling like some, holding, I don't know if straddle is the right word, but holding something like that as well. Whatever my gear is, that's what I do. It's over my shoulder. I'm kind of holding onto it, and not because I'm afraid somebody's going to grab it and run. It's just because, like I said, it's just in tune with me to know where it's at. I know where it's at. It's right here, and I keep the most valuable stuff on me. So, and the least valuable stuff, can be the stuff they grab. And same thing. So I like gig bags for that reason, and so there. All right. Declan. Hey, Declan, what's up, buddy? He says, saw you in the background of a rodeo games. I was in the background of the rodeo games? That's funny. Didn't fancy giving it a go. So I was on a different project. The rodeo games, as you guys saw. So if you guys don't know what he's talking about, Sweetwater had a Gear Fest. And this is the thing that's interesting. I was at Gear Fest. I like this, like my finger motion here. I was at Gear Fest, but I was also there for something else. And so I went, that's why I was there 3 days early before Gear Fest. I was there for 3 days already. So what had happened was they had asked me to come out in May. And and then they were talking about GearFest, and I was like, I'll just come that week, the whole week, because what it's hard for me is to go, as you guys know. When I was there at Sweetwater for 7 days, I had videos come out. I had the Valiant bass video came out, the string video came out. I mean, I had to make those videos so that they were there. So I have content coming out that week, and so it increases your workload when you travel. So I'd rather travel once for a longer period of time than 2 separate times because it just cuts down the workload. So I was there. So GearFest, I didn't really participate. By say I did not participate in any of the Gear Fest festivities, but I was there in spirit, which is why you saw me in the background. I was cheering on the guys, for doing the thing and the gals, and I was working on something else. So you'll see the videos I was working on. Obviously, you saw I did the what guitar would I buy for $500? That was not a Sweetwater idea or video. That was me going. That's a video I just wanted to knock out. That was kind of like, while I'm there, what do I want to do? That's the video I wanted to do. You guys kept asking me to update the $500 guitar video from years ago because of inflation in the world, and I thought, okay, I'll do that video. But the videos that you will see, and of course I did the Dane Electro, no, sorry, not Dane, the Supro video. But the videos you'll see, there's Sweetwater videos coming, and one even's kind of like I'm going to call it a micro documentary. So to be prepared, I don't know if a lot of you are going to watch it, but I'm making a video. I'm sure it might be 40 minutes long when I'm done, but I have a feeling it's not going to get a lot of views, but I think over time it will become the resource if you ever have a question about these things in Sweetwater, and you go there for it. So that's what I did. I did that kind of content. And if you guys saw some of the live show last week when I was there, and it was, some of the things we talked about that I'll be releasing soon is I did extensive interviews and videos of everything about Sweetwater. I feel like I'm super versed in Sweetwater. I interviewed employees, I interviewed new hires, I interviewed managers, and I think I even have a question pending, and that'd be a good time to go to that question. I saw somebody asked me a question, and it will kind of segue into it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I really, really swear I saw I thought I saw another question specifically. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Voodoo Fist. Okay, so I'm going to go to Voodoo Fist because I saw this question and it'll kind of tie into what we're talking about. Voodoo Fist's question was, hey, Phil, were you able to meet any repair techs at Sweetwater or just inspectors? Any insight? Happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Voodoo Fist, I did 10 times more than you're thinking I did. I told you guys I didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing. I just knew what I was after, which was to kind of be the definitive proof, or not so much proof. I don't want to say. I want to be the definitive answer to the 55-point inspection. I didn't want to so many channels have taken videos of it, and I think that's great. And we've seen it. And the question I had, I think you'll be really, impressed, but you'll definitely be shocked by what I decided to do. In my video, which is about Sweetwater, it's not about just the 55-point inspection. It's about the career pathing of the techs, the T1, T2s, T3s, to the main techs that do the repairs and install your stainless steel fret wire and stuff, to, how does the pay scale work, to, what's the accountability, who's accountable, how does the accountability come, where does it go, whose information is kept, what information is given, what is proprietary, what is not proprietary, who is involved outside of Sweetwater in this process, and what is their roles in it. I mean, it's that detailed. I can tell you. So to answer your question is, yes, I talked to everyone, not every single person, but I can tell you I've talked to every department at that company, including, some of you guys know this from last week's show, I even took some of the employee tests and sat with HR and went through HR stuff at Sweetwater to get a sense of the culture and the entire company. And the reason is because I think there is a lot of discussion. So many channels discuss Sweetwater because it's such a huge company. And it's not only the biggest company now, it's shooting off like a rocket. It's not only, think of this, they passed everybody, all the other guitar centers and stuff. They passed everybody, but that doesn't mean anything. They're still hyper speeding right now. At growth is crazy. To give you a reference, that in 2019, like I said, I have all this information. In 2019, they had 35 guitar techs on staff. Now they have 120 total. 100 is in the guitar gallery, which is the T1s, T2s, and T3s, which T1s are the ones that are just allowed to box and unbox. They unbox your product, and then they help the people take photos of it, and then they put it back in the box after the inspections, everything's done. And then your T2s are going to do the bulk of your 55-point inspection. T3s are going to be addressing issues like they fix as much as they can, like buffing and stuff. And like I said, all that will be in a video. I might make attention deficit video for some of us, because I'm the same as you guys. Like, my attention span's like really 5 minutes sometimes. So I might try to make a 5-minute, 10-minute little video for everybody. But there will be a 40-minute, minimum 40-minute, like, micro documentary of the entire process. And if you ever want to know everything about them, and they were, to say that they were kind to me is an understatement. They literally, they do have final say of what gets released. So I will make the video and then they have to see it, but not to really kind of censor me, but just to make sure that some of the wording is correct, because it's important. They let me have access, including those employee tests. They let me film everything, including stuff that they've never shown anybody, much less even their employees. So I was given carte blanche and run around and do whatever I wanted. And they were great. They were willing, and they're willing to. They're basically very upfront about the fact that if I find anything, or if we see anything kind of shady or weird, they want to know about it. They're like, we want to fix it. So interesting stuff. So to answer your question, Voodoo Fist, is yes, I did get to talk to them. I can tell you exactly how they get paid, like I said, how the career pathing works, how long the average one's been there, how big they are, how many guitars they sell a day, how many guitars they inspect a day, how long. I timed, so you guys know, they had never done it before. I timed all the inspections and to see how long each one takes and get a sense of cost, and was able to give cost, have them help me get cost analysis of what it costs, so we can explain that to you. So, yeah, says, can we get the 4-hour McKnight cut? Maybe. So, there's 6 hours of total footage on my SD cards of footage. So that's how much footage I took collectively over a period of 2-3 days. Alan says maybe Sweetwater should make their own unboxing videos. They could. You know what it is? They like I said, it's great. And believe it or not, I think they learned some stuff too. Like, I think I helped them a little bit and they helped me a lot. So kind of worked out great. And then Sirius says, did Sweetwater pay your airfare and hotel bill? That's what they did. They paid the hotel and the airfare. Which is because, so how that usually works, if you guys don't know, how that works with most companies is they usually have miles. So they can cash in their miles, and they have you flying on their miles, and then they booked an entire floor at the hotel for everyone. There was 35 or 40 people brought out for all kinds of things. I mean, there was artists there for the things and stuff like that. So it was really cool. And then, which is really nice, because it's a really hard thing to communicate to you guys. And I definitely never want to give you a sob story, because this is not a sob story job. But going to these events, there's just no way to go without some kind of expense. You know what I mean? I don't mean just meals. I mean just physical expense. There's all kinds of things you need. There's things that happen while you're there. There's things you're missing out on financially because you're not at home. You know what I mean? So it relieves the burden, which, to be honest with you, is important, because I don't know how much I'd be willing to pay a couple $1,000s to just find out how Sweetwater really does their 55-point inspection. It just doesn't really appeal to me. But I was curious, and that's what, when they flew me out, this was all under the fact they wanted me just really to do a video about their plecking systems and their setups. And that's kind of how it was pitched to me. It was like, why don't you come out and do some videos about, how we do things, how we do the plec and how we do this stuff. And I said, no, I have a different idea. And I pitched it to him. I said, how about you let me kind of learn how all this works? And you'll see it in the interview. The question that came up that was really interesting was, I said, how do you explain when a customer gets a defective guitar? Like, if, that's in the video, you'll see it. I said, we know for a fact. I have the answer now. I'm not going to give you right now. It's going to drive you crazy. But they answered the question. I was really impressed. I said, how do you explain if you do all this stuff? How does a customer possibly get a defective guitar? We know they get defective guitars. We see it all the time. Obviously, I did a video about one. So how is that possible? And through this communication, we have the answer. I have the answer, and you'll know in the video why. And I think it will make a lot of sense why the perfection is impossible, but what they're doing to get it as close to possible as possible. I don't know. What is the groovy guitar to my left? I don't know. This is my left. I want to say that's the Rev Star, and then there's the Valiant guitar, and then there's a Journey foldable acoustic. That's all carbon fiber that they sent out for a video. Edward, so this is where it's tough, guys. You guys are going to start asking me questions like Edward, like, hey, how do they set their action stuff? All that's in the video. It will all be in the video. I'll try to timestamp the video if it's long so you guys can go to certain things. But there is a method for everything they do, and it makes sense. Like I said, it was stuff, everything that happened, there was nothing when I was there that I went, why would you do it that way? Everything was like, okay, I could see that. When I say I could see that, was not like I could justify that. I was more like, I understand what that problem is. So the answer to your question is there's detailed screens that they have, and some manufacturers dictate the actions to them. So some manufacturers, well, actually, I'll give you this little nugget and then we'll move on. Some manufacturers dictate what the guitars should be like. So when they do their 55-point inspection, all they're doing is trying to ensure the guitar is what was spec'd by the factory. So when you get a guitar and you're like, oh, this is wrong, well, sometimes they don't have any control of that because they're just trying to give you what the factory says is good. And sometimes, and in fact, in cases of this two particular cases, there is a full-time product manager for Fender and Gibson on site, and they actually have oversight of all your Fenders and Gibsons. So Fender, even though Sweetwater is doing the inspections, doing anything, Fender, because they do so much volume, obviously, and Gibson, because they do so much volume, those two companies have full-time people there at Sweetwater every day. And so if you get something from them, it's not even Sweetwater has any really real control over that. Everything will be decided by those production managers, those product managers. I should say product managers, not production managers. I'm sorry, product managers. So again, that will all be in the video. And again, you'll see why Sweetwater does what they do. And then when they have no information from manufacturers, they've kind of just created their own guidelines for stuff. So there you go. Lewis is like, Phil, when is the Sire S7 video coming out? I don't know. I'm hoping in July. That would be like my ideal release, because that video will do well, and so it'll be nice to have it out and kind of help. Videos like that, mid-price guitar videos do the best for me. It's whenever it's like I'm not dipping too far down or dipping too far up. It's like you guys seem to like the deep dives on that, but I'm pumping out a lot of stuff. I'm hoping July is going to be a lot more videos. June was a good amount, but of course I was hindered by this trip. What? Let's see. Okay. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I was looking to see if there was anything I can... PW, who's a member, says, do those reps also dictate setups on Epiphones and Squires? Yes, those would be the product managers for those brands. So it would be Squire, Fender. I would assume, now that you said that's probably the one question I didn't think to ask. I never thought to ask, does the Fender product manager supervise the specialty brands? And same with Gibson. I would imagine the answer is yes, but I don't know. I could find out and put it in the video if that's of concern to you. In other words, yes, Fender would do Fender and Squire, but do they do Jackson, EVH, Gretsch, all the specialty brands? I would say yes, that he's on site for that stuff, just like Gibson. Does Gibson do the Kramer stuff too? I would imagine yes, they do Gibson Epiphone for sure, and then Kramer, but I didn't think to ask that. It's a really good question. I asked a lot of you guys questions before I went, and I had a lot of that armed up, and I pulled those out. But like I said, I was really focused on a couple of things, as you'll see in the video, that I thought was interesting. Okay. All right. Let me go back to questions because I kind of jumped around. Dan says, I'm playing a gig tomorrow. Nope, that was the one we did. Nope. Pedally says, for the pedal jar, happy 4th of July, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, 4th of July. 4th of July for me, my daughter usually goes to her friends and does 4th of July. And then my son really doesn't care. And then my wife and I, our dogs get really upset during 4th of July. Part of that is I've kind of told my wife, is your dogs really feed off of you emotionally. And my wife gets nervous because my dog, one of our dogs has seizures. And he's a young dog, so it's not very normal. And we took him to the vet. I know this is going weird, guys, but this is my life in 4th of July. When he gets, it seems like when he has traumatic events, then he has seizures around that time. We took him to the vet. The vet wants to keep him off of the medication for seizures as long as possible because it shortens the dog's lifespan. At least that's what the vet told us. And the two vets. I think she even went and had another second opinion. And like I said, he's young, and sometimes the seizures are short, and we have to time them. Sometimes they're long, and so my wife gets nervous, because of the 4th of July, because the dogs act kind of, the two dogs act a little strange because of the fireworks, and then that makes them nervous because they pick up on our, energy. That's how dogs work, and so 4th of July for us is like, just chill, bring the dogs inside, lock down the house, cover the windows up, play a movie that's a little louder, not loud, but louder, and just kind of work through the night. And it makes my wife and the dogs happy, and that's what I do. So that's my 4th of July, guys. There you go. All right. Unplayed Video Games says, you influenced me to buy a Somnium. Oh, nice. You mentioned that older EMG 81s sound different than newer ones. When did the sound change? Will you sell me an older one? Oh, it's a great question. I love that question. When did it happen? I don't know when it happened. And remember, it's not even so much I say that as I've had older customers tell me that for years. And I tend to just, because of that, buy older EMGs. And all the older EMGs I have, I didn't buy the pickups. I bought, because you can always find a guitar. Even now it's a little tough, but back in the day it was easier, but you can still do it. You find a guitar for like $300 and it has an old set of really good EMGs in it. And you can just buy the guitar, and I'll just take them out and put the cheaper pickups in the guitar, and you can sell off the guitar for $200 and you get a set of EMGs for $100. It's a real common all the time. I'm not talking about a guitar that had them new installed. I'm talking about somebody modded up guitars. So, but let me look. If I have a set to sell you, I'll let you know on the show, but I don't think I do. But you can also do blackouts, Seymour Duncan blackouts. They're really good too. But I'm hoping you're enjoying the Somnium guitar. It's a really cool guitar. It really changes your perspective of guitars. Meester says, welcome back home, Phil. Thank you. Ryan, and Steve had a terrific show. Thank you. I'll talk about that in a second. Such quick and witty banter and repartee. I'm messing it up. Each time I say it, I just said it worse. With Ryan especially, thanks for the great show. I'm glad you liked it. I think a lot of you liked it. Some of you guys didn't like it, but some people don't like it if anyone comes on the show, because it's really kind of like us. This is our time together. It's like the Goonies. This is our time. And sometimes when a guest comes on, the flow of the question. But I'm going to tell you something. If I didn't say it, because I don't even remember that show. I timestamped it on Tuesday. I still think I was in a fog then. When they came in, they saved me. I had, as you know, Friday it didn't happen, and that was it happens. Technical difficulties. There was all kinds of problems. Everything went to crap, as it does. That's just that's just the day. I decided to go, okay, I'm gonna do it Saturday. But here's the problem: at Friday I was probably running on a minimum amount of energy left, and on Saturday I didn't have anything to give you guys. And when I went live, I remember as soon as I went live, I remember thinking, like, what am I doing? I don't have this to give. I am just zapped out at this point. Because to you guys, I forgot what time we even went live. But at that point, I already worked an full 8 hour of day of doing stuff. And so I was pretty zonked out. And when they came in the room, that helped me keep the energy up because I had somebody to bounce off of and take a break for a second and just interact. So whether you guys realize it or not, it was really and I had only intended to do a 40-minute show just to tell you guys like, hey, let's get something out there and do something. So I'm really glad that they stepped up and joined the show and stuff. And they were just kind, as they are. I'm lucky. You're lucky to have friends in what you do. And in my world, it's nice when these channels, we all get along. I say we all get along because most of us get along, but some of us are just good friends. We just become good friends. And that becomes the same way as you guys, whatever job you have is how you become good friends, is you really empathize with somebody who does what you do and vice versa, and you confide in them and you become friends. So yeah, Fingers said, you all look beat. We were beat. And then after that show, the live show, we had a dinner, and then there was I was on the Rhett Shull's podcast, same with Ryan. There was a big podcast. I think that was like 2 hours. And then after that, we had a jam with Dovey Doss, and I was on the jam for that. I jumped up and jammed too as well. So, and then we all went to the hotel and tried to stay up until our flights left, which is at 4 a.m. To be 20 again, where that stuff bounces off you. All right. Okay. Andrew, right? Okay. So Andrew says, hey, I hate to talk down on them because their employees have been super helpful to me, but would you trust Guitar Center technician to route a branded stock guitar body? Does GC even do this? I would not trust Guitar Center to certify a technician. By certify, I mean because they're physically in the store, somehow imply that they are capable. What I would do with the Guitar Center tech, and I'm very clear about this, I've said this before, I have friends that are Guitar Center techs. Sometimes you get the job, and most of them, I can tell you, I feel comfortable saying this, they took the job they could get at the time, and they're doing it. And what I will say is this, is that I would vet a Guitar Center technician, a guitar tech, the same way I would vet anyone else. I would find reviews on them. I would talk to other customers. There's nothing wrong with asking customers for referrals. If somebody asked me if I wanted your business and you said, hey, can you give me a referral? A couple referrals, I could give you a couple referrals, right? I mean, think of it this way. At the very least, if they're a halfway decent person, they have to have 3 friends that will lie to you and say that they do the work. So I mean, having a referral isn't even proof of anything. But at least if if they can't come up with 3 friends to lie for them, that's telling you something. But at least you should be able to find some kind of reference. So to answer your question, would I trust a Guitar Center technician? I would, but I would vet him, and that's how I would trust him. Is I would vet him out the same way I would vet anybody else if I had somebody do something that I was concerned about or worried about. And the thing I don't like, and which is why I'm hypercritical of Guitar Center as a whole, remember, I'm hypercritical of their policies, which is why I was hypercritical of Sweetwater. Again, Sweetwater is not perfect. There's no situation where I think Sweetwater is perfect. I just think Sweetwater is doing things a little better than Guitar Center, and I just want things to be a little better because, as I've said this before, I actually had this talk with the Sweetwater, and it was really illuminating for them as well. When I told them one of my problems with the 55-point inspection, when I called them out for it years ago, and there was this drama between my channel and Sweetwater, drama meaning that I was, saying things and they had to deal with it, was I thought it was unfair to the mom and pop stores across the country because my whole argument was Guitar Center used to undercut the mom and pop shops, but that's legitimate, right? I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not here to talk about that, but it's real. If Guitar Center will sell you a guitar that's $400 for $350 and the mom and pop wanted for $400, Guitar Center won your business. They undercut the competition. Is it suck? I think it sucks, because it's part of life. It sucks for the mom and pop, but it's real. Right? They actually gave you a deal. And so my issue with Sweetwater in the beginning, when they used to not publish, because remember, I don't know if you know this, they used to not publish the 55-point inspection, which is why I was upset. And now they published it because I apparently made a great video and caused some trouble, right? And they published it, right? And they published it because not because of fear, they saw my point of view. My point of view was, if you're claiming to do something and now your mom and pops have to compete against you, and you're not doing it, that's not fair. it's like I said, fair is like I said, Guitar Center takes $50 off the price of the guitar, and there's the customer saves $50, and Guitar Center has to eat $50, and they win, and that's how that works. But if you say you're doing something and you're not doing it, and then the mom and pop has to match that, that's not fair, right? That'd be like Guitar Center not actually giving the discount, but the mom and pop have to match the discount. So that's the thing. So that's where I'm critical of Guitar Center. And the reason I'm critical on Guitar Center and the guitar techs is because, again, lack of support for their employees, lack of support for the techs. One of the things that bugs me was when I was a guitar tech and I was working full time and Guitar Center pulled in the Guitar Garage, right? And I don't know if you know this, but originally Guitar Garage was going to be exactly like Sweetwater's plan. They were going to go ahead and set up all the guitars in the store. That was their big thing. Right? They had, whether you guys know it or not, that was their big thing. It was going to happen. Guitar Center was going to basically kill the mom and pops because they were going to basically set up guitars. They ditched that plan within, it feels like minutes, but it was probably days or weeks. And then they went to, okay, well, now you just have a guitar tech on site and you can pay them. My issue was they don't even support them. And in other words, what I mean by that is, and a lot of you, there's over 1,100 of you here, so you know this to be true because there's got to be a couple of you who have experienced this. You go to Guitar Center Tech, they do something wrong and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm protected because this is $1 billion guitar business. And of course they're going to protect me. And they're like, no, we're not the guitar tech. And you're like, wait a minute, he's here. It says Guitar Garage. It implies it's connected and it's not. And that's why I said that's the things that bug me. But that being said, if you don't have any reputable techs in your area and you got to go to Guitar Center, just vet the tech like you would anybody else. He's really kind of independent Guitar Center for the most part anyways, for the most part. And so there you go. So, Blind Eye says they just fired 300 employees. Is that Guitar Center employees? That I didn't know that. I know Sweetwater has 2,000 employees. They have 600 sales engineers, 500 and something actually, but 600 sales engineers. And it's legit. When you see this video, I have a video that's coming. 90% of you guys are going to find it boring. 10% of you are going to drop your jaw like I did. I took the Sweetwater Sales Engineers test. It was a horrific, dismal failure. I've crashed and burned. I'm not even sure if I'm hireable at Sweetwater. It was kind of funny. I'm like, but... Good. So that will let you know. If you ever want to know, that it'll let you know. By the way, what that was at Sweetwater, we were talking about the sales engineers, and I was talking about them, and we were talking about all this stuff, and then they were kind of like, if you want to do a video about them and how many, if you want to do a video about them and talk about all this stuff, and what happened was I had breakfast with a bunch of sales engineers and people in the class because it's 13 weeks of training for the sales engineers. And they were all talking about how horrible the tests are. And I thought, so I went to Sweetwater, to my person at Sweetwater I know, Tyler, and I said, can I take the test to be a sales engineer? And he was like, I don't know. And he went to HR, and HR had a talk with me about what was not allowed to be divulged and what was, but they were, obviously they got to keep their business, protected. And at the end of it, they're like, okay, but yeah, you can do it. And, this is what you can disclose and this is what you can't disclose. And they let me take it. And what I learned from that is those sales engineers are legit. That's legit, man. If they know, they're supposed to pass that test by 80%. At the end. And I can tell you anyone, it was 160 questions for that particular test, but there's more longer, crazier tests at the end. That test was 160 questions that you have to answer in 60 minutes. Steve took it from me. Steve took it with me from 60 Cycle Hum. He's actually a scientist. That's his day job. He's a scientist. In the video, you can see we were just sweating, going, what the hell? How do we not know this stuff? There was companies in that question we didn't even know. I didn't even know they existed. And by the way, in there, that test is math. There's engineering math. There's questions about products. There's questions about how things work. It was pretty crazy to see that's what the barrier entry was for information to become just basically work there. So, I don't know. There you go. Okay. JP, are we on JP? No. Where are we at? We're on Jeff. Jeff, New Guitar Day, NGD. New Guitar Day says, finally got my dream guitar. I wanted it for 10 years. Okay, what is it? Les Paul Axis, really, with Floyd Rose. You know what it is? I love it when somebody's dream guitar is this obscure guitar. Like, the Floyd Rose on a Les Paul is like this. I think it's cool as hell. And it's always been this like, why would you ruin a Les Paul? But, to me, there's reasons why you would want that. And I think it's cool that when you get something really exotic that you've always wanted, because let's face it, there's not a whole lot of Floyd Rose Les Pauls you could have come across on the last 10 years. He says, was perfect super low action with 10s, put 9s, getting sitar sound. That would make sense. Come on, man, you're okay, we'll get there. Open string, fretting goes away, not as low, shim it, other. Yeah, look, you have a lot going on. You're 24 and 3/4 scale. You're a Floyd Rose, and you're putting 9s on it. You're really, it's not impossible because remember, there's a lot of shredders, 80s guitars that had 24 and 3/4 scale. But you got super low action, and basically you're getting a sitar sound. What I really need to know is what strings are doing the sitar sound, because that will tell you everything. But what I would do just to keep things easy is do the method where, like I said, tune the guitar up. I know it's in tune. Then check the relief on the neck first, because that's important. And then after you do the relief on the neck, what I would worry about is not the bridge. I would worry about the nut. And what I would worry about on the sitar effect is doing exactly that, shim the nut up, which is very easy to do on a Floyd Rose nut. They sometimes, if you're lucky in the case, they'll have the metal shims. That's what you need. But if you don't have metal shims, you can use a business card. Just stick a business card, cut it out, stick 2 holes through it, put it on the nut, put the nut over top of it, compress it down. It's not perfect. It will, if it solves the problem, then what you do is you go online to like FU Parts, which is a great source for parts, or you can go to All Parts or whatever. But I would do FU Tone parts, and you can buy the actual Floyd Rose nut shims, locking nut shims, and just use those because they're just they're easy and you can get it relatively inexpensive, and they'll do it. But just so you know, just so we're clear, you can put a business card in there for the next 15 years and no one would notice. But I would maybe suggest getting the real stuff since you have a very nice guitar and you should have the best. But yeah, that's what my guess is. But again, I'm not looking at it. We're just talking about it. That's my guess. JP Del Mundo says, hey, Phil, any experience with Fret King guitars? Currently looking to the triple P90s. Fret King guitars is Trey Wilkinson. Trev Wilkinson designed those. They're made in the Mir factory in Korea. And they're amazing guitars. I met Trev Wilkinson at the Summer NAMM show of 2018. And I love those guitars so much. I tried to buy 2 of them. And the Trev was great. He was so crazy, by the way. He was so crazy in a good way, like fun and so much information. He told me, he's like, you ever come to London? I got Jimi Hendrix's car or something. He had something from Jimi Hendrix in his apartment, but I think it was like said his car or something in his apartment. But whatever, he has all this cool Jimi Hendrix stuff. And obviously, if you don't know who Trev Wilkinson is, Wilkinson Bridges, Wilkinson guitars, of course he does. Obviously, he designed Fret King. He designed the Supro guitars, I think. He also designed... what's the other ones? Italian guitars? I think that's the name. It's something like that. It's got a weird name. Anyways, found 2 guitars, loved them, said, hey, I'd like to buy them. If you want to give me dealer cost, that'd be great. If you can give me artist pricing, that'd be better. If I have to pay full price, that just happens. I'll do that. Either way, I'm committed. I'm in. Let's do this. And he's like, yes, I'll have the sales rep take care of you. And the sales rep blew me off. The only thing that made me laugh, I always talk about these stories, is this. What made me laugh most about that sales rep was the sales rep blew me off, but then asked me for a selfie. I always think about this day. He wanted a selfie with me, but he didn't want to hook me up with guitars so I can promote his products. And again, when I say hook up, just sell me guitars. Like I said, it's kind of industry to give somebody like me a deal on a guitar because I'm going to give you promotion exchange. That's usually a good logic. It's good damn business, that's for sure, because the promotion I will give you is way outweighs any discount you could give, because on a bad day, a small channel could sell 10 of your guitars. So your return on investment is very short and very fast. But it's weird to me when they blow you off and you're like, huh, All right. And then no bitterness there for me. By the way, I would gladly still buy those guitars. I just never found them again. It was just that show. And I think the one I was looking at was, there's an artist they have, and I think it's a Tele, but it's a green. It's like avocado green. And it had this really cool blend control. And then I think the other one was a 3P90 guitar. But love the quality of the guitars, and I love the guitars. Fret King was cool stuff. And like I said, if I ever come across them again, I would buy them again. I really wanted to buy the ones in the booth, though, because when I find a guitar I like, I get nervous. One thing about this gig that makes me super nervous is I'll get a guitar sent to me, or I'll come across a guitar and I'll play it and I'll love it. And they go, we can't have that one. We'll send you another one. And it feels like every time I get the other one, it's not the same. And I know a lot of times it's in your brain. You just like kind of romanticize the first one. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, it doesn't sound and feel the same. So I always get nervous and go, hey, I really want the one I had. Let's see. Mark wants to know, hey, Phil, how many basses do you own? How many basses do I own? Let's see. Let me tell you what I have. I have my custom shop Warwick that's made just for me. My custom shop jazz bass that I've had since 2003. That's my main bass. If you see me, it's either I'm playing that or the Warwick. I have I'm a huge Stu Ham fan. I have a Stu Ham Urge 1. It's like a prototype bass. It's like early on, one of the early ones. So it's 3. I have a mini 27-inch scale Valiant bass. I do have a bass here for review, so I mean, there's one, but I'm talking about my personal collection. And I have one that I just got. When I say just got, I just got notifications it's going to be shipped. I had one made. So, I mean, obviously, I don't want to tell you what that one is. But, so 5. I have 5 basses, which is a lot for me. I usually have around 3. And usually this is where somebody asks, like, what about this one? Because over the years, I've had different ones. And I just always keep it really, really short. To be honest with you, I really like the Warwick because it was custom made for me. But I play the Fender one the most. And that's why you notice I've had it since 2003. It's been my main bass. So, just something I like about it. And that's why I use it. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. That's the great thing about basses. Same with acoustics. I play bass a lot and I play acoustic a lot. So I just have a few acoustics, like a half a dozen acoustics that I use all the time, and a half a dozen basses. Because like I was talking about earlier about genres, playing different genres, I really don't need a different bass to play a different genre. I can kind of nail everything I want to do with, my one bass. Luke says, hey, Phil, I listen to most of your episodes. I apologize. Just kidding. As podcasts rather than live. Are there any other guitar-related podcasts that you suggest? Yeah, of course. There's the Tone Mob. There's 60 Cycle Hum. There's Dipped in Tone. Usually what's great is you really got to go to like, either Apple or you can do Spotify and look for the suggestions. They'll give you great suggestions, but those are great podcasts. There's some I'm missing too, but Blake's Tone Mob podcast I like. Obviously, I like Rhett's Dipped in Tone podcast. It's good. And I like 60 Cycle Hum's podcast. And I think what's nice is I really feel like, in my personal opinion, if you were to listen to my podcast and those 3 podcasts, those 4 podcasts combined, you would really feel like you're not overlapping. They're not really anything alike. I could not, I don't feel like our styles or what we talk about even are the same things. Different stuff. So you kind of get guitar stuff. There's others too. There's Get Offset, which is Emily. I just recently discovered her podcast and started listening to it. And again, mostly interested because, again, different voice. I like the subject of guitar, but I like, me personally, I'm going to be biased because I don't want to listen to anything that sounds like me. Like anybody that's talking like me or doing anything like me in any form of subjects like me, I'm not interested in that format. I'm interested in something totally different because, I listen to myself, and I'm done. Remember, I'm here with you guys. We're all listening to the same podcast at the same time together. It's all of us. Jay says, "Hey Phil, when I change the strings and tune up the high E string, I often seem to unwind the ball end of the high E string, ruining a new set. Seems to happen most with elixirs. What am I doing wrong? Okay, so let's analyze this for a second. So what you're saying is when you change your strings and tune up on the high string, it unwinds on the ball end, which is a very strange thing to happen because it should be wrapped and tight. So what could be happening is you could have something cutting the string like a burr. So there could be a problem. I would definitely check your bridge. Keep in mind, you're going to physically take your fingers and kind of feel for a sharp point or a burr or an edge. And you're like, I don't feel anything. You're not really going to feel it. So what I like to use is I use micro mesh, but you can use like a piece of leather. You don't even see sandpaper, just something that you can think about buffing. You're not trying to sand, you're trying to buff, right? So anything you can think of buff. You can probably use the finest on a cuticle file, right on those foam board files. You need the finest, which should be like 12,000, but it'll be really, really fine. Anything like that, something fine, and just rub in those areas where the string touches and kind of round off anything that could be cutting on the string. You could be getting a bad batch. Remember, Elixir doesn't make their strings. They buy them from somebody else. Elixir coats strings, but doesn't make them. So they could be buying from, that batch could be bad. It happens. So that's something I also consider as well. And even if you bought packs you're like, oh, I bought it, but I didn't buy them together. I bought a pack and a couple weeks later. It depends on who you're buying from. If you're buying from a large seller who's churning a ton or selling a lot of strings, you're probably out of the batch. But if you're going to someone who's maybe bought 100 packs of strings and then 2 weeks later they're still in that same 100 pack of defective strings, you can have that issue. One thing I also tell you to do is it's sometimes worth your time to, if you're having, if you break a high string, you got to eat it, man. I don't know. That's for your time and your sanity, just go on your ways. But if you're breaking a couple of the same brand, I would reach out to that brand, with an email. Hey, this is what happened. Take us a picture with your phone, broken string, picture of the package, and let them know. Say, hey, look, I'm not asking. That's what I tell them. I go, I'm not asking for free stuff. I just want you guys to know I'm having a problem. Maybe you have a problem, right? Maybe you want to know about it, and maybe they'll take care of you too. And that's one of the benefits of that. But either way, you're doing think of this. You're doing a good service. You're trying to help other musicians, so they're aware if they have a problem. And then if that doesn't work, you can change brands. That works too. Jason, he says, do you think Strymon will come out with a Iridium V2, maybe with an effects loop? I don't know. I just saw, did Strymon just come out with a tremolo? No, a Leslie speaker pedal. Really shocked. I will tell you this. No one asked me this. And I'm going to use your question to piggyback off of because of Strymon. At the Gear Fest, when I got to try all the gear, obviously I reviewed some stuff, right? I reviewed that Supro and those pedals. I reviewed, obviously there's a video that I can't show you guys, but there's, some videos that are trying to get approved because they were deep dive type videos of gear. What was the most impressive thing I saw at the show? No one asked, and you may not even care, but I'm going to tell you. Without a doubt, my favorite piece of gear was the Dream 65 by Universal Audio, which is their take on the 65 Deluxe pedal. I was sitting there literally in an environment just struck by how good it sounded. In fact, I just blurted out, I wish the Tone Master by Fender sounded this good. I mean, and so I like the Tone Master. It's not a dig against the Tone Master. It's like, wow. I was just thinking like, wow, I was really impressed. And the reason is because you guys know I use a 65 Deluxe Reverb like every day. It's an amp that's just definitely in my ear. If I hear it, I just know that sound. I know, what it does. I was really impressed with that pedal. In fact, because it was really expensive, and I was like, wow, I think it was like $400, some crazy price tag, maybe $350, $400. It was a lot. And I remember playing through it going, wow. They did get, and it was funny. He's like, oh yeah, he did tell, he did make me laugh. He goes, I know you really like that pedal. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I got a gift for you. And then they gave me a Dream 65 t-shirt, which I wore yesterday, which I liked. But that pedal was really good. I think that was the highlight for me at the show of everything I tried. And then after that was probably a video that's coming soon on some Gibson acoustics that I was really blown away with. Just blown away. I don't, the reaction in the video, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the video because they filmed it on their end. I think I was like right out of one of those infotainment shows, like, oh, I can't believe my ears. Like I had some kind of weird reaction where I remember when I was reacting to it going, why am I talking and thinking like this? I remember just being so shocked with it. So there you go. There you go. Oh, Mike Jones says, there's a brand that gives you extra high E strings. I forget who they are. I thought it was GHS. Was it GHS? I remember too. There used to be a brand, or there is a couple of brands that give you an extra high E string, which is, it's important. It happens. I hate it because I'm always breaking high E strings for some reason. In my world, what happens is companies send guitars for review, and then the high E breaks when I'm doing the review, and then I'm like, gotta put a high E on this guitar. And then I'm like, well, then they won't sound the same. And is that really so then I'm restringing the whole guitar, and then I'm shipping it back. And I think, sometimes I go, I feel like I should send them a bill for $7. Let's see. I'm looking at Roto Sound. Paul says Roto Sound gives you 2 high E strings. That sounds right. Maybe I was thinking JHS. You're probably right. Roto Sound. It's been a while since I bought a pack, but I remember back in the day you'd buy packs and certain brands would give you 2 high E strings. Yeah, Nick says buy bulk high E strings. That's what I have to do all the time. Some of your guys' questions, I read them and I'm like, it's just, I love you guys. They're so strange. Okay. Mike's been talking to me about this for a while. He says, what do you think the material Tusk, he's talking about Tusk by Graphtec, would sound like as a fretboard? Pros and cons. I know a rep told me that they have been working on it for a while. Like I said, I don't know because it's a hard material, but it's obviously soft because you can cut into it pretty easy. I would imagine it's gonna, and I think I told you this on an personal email. I would imagine it's gonna be a lot like phenolic resin fretboards in what it does. I don't know if it'll sound the same or be the same, but it will be close. I can't imagine it's too far off. I don't know what the appeal would be, and I definitely would. My concern wouldn't be how it sounds. It would be how do frets bite into it, and do you have to then glue those frets in, and how much of the fret staying in there is dependent on that glue. Those are all things. I think I love the idea. As you guys know, I'm really a sucker for the next innovation, right? Anytime a company's like, hey, we're doing this new thing, and they send it, I'm always like, send it, because I just want to see. I don't like curious, but ultimately, when the comments come in the videos, I do agree with most of you when you're like, why fix it? It's not broken. Just use wood. I agree. I just love the idea of using new materials all the time. I always think there's possibly a new, better idea. Most of the time, I don't think it's there because either too expensive or it's not good enough. Like, to me, it's got to be better than the current material, or equally as good but cheaper, right? Something like that, or equally as good but less resource driven off the planet or something. But I don't know, but I would try it. Let me put it this way: if Graphtec had a fretboard made out of Tusk, and they want to send it for a video, I would definitely say yes, just out of the curiosity of it, because I don't know why. Graphtec saddles. This is back Mike S again. He says Graphtec saddles and nuts supposedly add sustain. Well, no. See, this is a term that I don't like, which is add. I believe the same thing a lot of guitar builders and repair guys believe, that nothing adds, it takes away. It's subtractive by nature. So imagine what I'm trying to say is like, it's not that a bone nut or a brass or a bell bronze nut or a graphite nut or Tusk, which is like like a melamine material, or corian, which is a lot of times what a lot of that stuff is, just corian. Those materials don't add sustain. Just imagine in my opinion, if I took 7 different materials for a nut, put a string on it and rated how well it sustains and how bright it is and how deep the note goes, just kind of put it on a spectrum. I would imagine, and then we kind of went through all the different materials and we said, okay, this is the most and this was the least. I would never say this adds. I would say this is how it is natural or as close to natural as possible. And then these are taking away. Because to me, it's always about the subtractive. It's taking things away. And remember, I make pickups. So as a pickup guy, as a pickup fanatic, people always like talk about, oh, the sound comes in pickup. I'm like, well, really, the sound is happening and the pickup's got to pick it up. And so it's about how much of the pickup can translate that to the amplifier. You know, that's really what it comes down to, is how much of that real sound can be translated over to the amplifier. And so again, it's not adding, it's subtracting. What are you losing? Same thing with guitar cables. They don't add frequencies, they steal them, they take them, subtract them. So everything to me is subtractive. So I know it's like, I feel like we're arguing terminology. We're not arguing, by the way, but we're, I'm semantics here, but I just like to think that way. So I don't think, I understand from a marketing standpoint, they're like, this adds sustain, but I think what really is like it's less subtractive than some other material. So, and the reason I like that is because sometimes people ask me like, what sounds better, this material, this material? And sometimes it's not even a difference. It's like, it's two roads that lead you to the same house. So, I don't really care, right? It's as long as you get to the same house, you're fine. So some materials are the same, and I don't notice a big difference at all. So, if that's, for whatever that's worth, that my little philosophy. While I'm reading, I will get, I will drink. Okay. Man, I have no idea, man. I'm going to, Louis Migolo, appreciate the question, though. It says, what do you think about Seymour Duncan loaded pickguards, custom stack plus, vintage hot stack plus, classic stack plus? My Samarium Cobalt Strat bridge pickup seems to be weak. I am not a fan of that pickup from Fender. There's very few pickups that I'm just not a fan of. And all of the noiseless pickups that Fender makes, I just don't think they nail it any better than anyone else. And sometimes they don't even do it as well as somebody else. If you have that in your guitar and you like it, that's not a way of me saying that you're wrong. It's just saying I don't like it. But back to what you're saying, I love loaded pickguards. I love the idea of loaded pickguards. I think they're fantastic. I think they always feel a little overpriced to me. All of them, every brand, no exceptions. Feels like, man, they're really hitting you for the price, because what they're doing is they're taking the material cost, and then when they know what it costs for you to pay to have somebody do it, and then they kind of add it all together, and even if they say, then they try to beat it by $10. But one of the things I like about that is I have a bunch of different loaded pickguards in boxes for guitars, because one of the things I like to do is, instead of mod up a current pickguard, like I have, like let's say I have a Fender Strat, instead of modding it up and putting pickups and different things in there, I'll just build an entire new pickguard assembly with everything I want, pull that one out, stick it here, and put it that way. And it makes it easier for me if I want to put it back to stock again. I don't have to remember like, what did I change and what was original in this. So I love them. So that's my answer to your question. And I like those pickups, by the way. The Blue Llama says, hey, Phil, any opinion on the Spark Mini? I have not tried the Spark Mini. I really enjoyed the Spark 40. Me too. I just ordered the Mini to change up the acoustics at bonfires. Okay, yeah. So take your electric guitar instead of your acoustic. Cheers and thanks for spending time with us. Yeah, I haven't tried it at all. I have the new, I think I showed you guys, I have the new TH30 from Yamaha. And, I as always, I always try to spend time with things to kind of like figure out like, okay, what do I like about this? And what's funny is the Spark and the THR30 are two things that do two great things that don't sound exactly alike, but I cannot tell you that one is better than the other. There's things about the Spark I like more than the THR, and there's things about the THR I like better than the Spark. But I have not tried the Spark Mini at all. I have no reference of it. I doubt they'll ever send one out to the channel. I don't know. So I say that because I don't. It's. I've said this before. Seems to never be any rhyme or reason to it, into what it is. I did a video, as you know. I could be reading the situation wrong too, by the way. I did a Spark video. I know the video did well because every one of my personal friends bought a Spark because of that stupid video. And so I know a lot of you had to buy Sparks because I was shocked. Like every one of my friends, I bought one too. I was like, oh yeah, it's great. And then, but a lot of you guys had problems with Sparks, and I tend to do this, and sometimes with great success and sometimes with great failure. When you guys send me things, because a lot of times you guys read into like, and it's nothing, no problem, by the way, but you read into like, I guess I work for these companies, or I have some connection, or somehow because I made the review and told you the goods and the bads, like I maybe I sold it to you. And I've told you guys before, I don't care if you buy any of this stuff. I don't get anything if you buy it. Even affiliate links, most of the affiliate things are purchases that are stuff I've never even talked about. So there's no real incentive for me if you buy these things. The only incentive for me is if you do buy some of this stuff from companies, if you tell them that maybe you saw it on my channel or you experienced it on my channel in a positive way, maybe that might prompt them to want to work with the channel in the future. But as I've told you, it's not even a big part of my revenue stream. So it's not something I highly focus on, and not something I want to put a lot of focus on, because I don't really need the companies daily talking to me about stuff. But my point is, one thing I do, you guys will send me emails and say, hey, I bought this product you talked about in video. These are the problems I'm having with it. I forward those to the company. And I always hope, not that they'll do what you say, right? By the way, so, not that they're like, haha, this, I'm going to use my YouTube clout to like, get them to like do what you say. But I do it because, I feel like, hey, yeah, you did make a decision based on something I showed you. So maybe if I can help you with that. And so they were a company, I sent them a lot of stuff and they never responded. I don't think Spark's ever responded to anything I've ever sent them. And as you know, we talked about on the podcast many times about the Spark issues with the power supplies, issues with shipments. Every issue that ever was talked about, I sent to my contact for Spark, and I never got anything back. And to the point where I thought, well, maybe he doesn't work there anymore, because it happens to me a lot. I send things to people and then they don't work there anymore. But then one day he sent me a thing about promoting some pedal or something, and I was like, well, whatever happened to like, and he did what I call jump. He jumped. I call it jumping because he jumped. If you guys have this, it happens in my business all the time. I send you an email, you don't respond. I send you an email, respond. Then you respond, but then you pretend like I didn't send you those emails, and you just jump right over those, and we're going to talk about the thing you want to talk about. And that's kind of what happened. So I don't know if I'll ever get a mini Spark sent out to the channel, and I have no desire to buy one because I don't need one. So that's the problem. I don't have any physical need for it. So Gerald says, what kind of lawn care? I know you guys just have to do this stuff every once in a while. I'll get it out of your system. I'll help you get it out of your system, Gerald. What kind of lawn care products do you use? I live in Phoenix. We don't have lawns, man. We have patches of grass. I have a token patch of grass in my front yard. It's probably 10 feet by 8 feet. My patch of grass in my backyard. For those of you who don't live in Arizona, you think we just have putting greens or something. They're not. They're just like, hey, all this rock, there's grass. And I don't do any yard work. So that's how that works. My punishment as a kid was yard work. Anytime I did anything wrong, it was yard work. And I was told as a kid that this will teach me how to do yard work when I was older. And what it taught me was I'm going to pay somebody to do yard work forever. So I pay somebody to do the yard work. Yeah. Even though I really don't have a whole lot to maintain, because I don't have a big yard and it's mostly rock, because it's Arizona. We have rock. We just changed the color of our rock. That's a real thing, by the way, here. My wife thought the old rock was ugly. We got rid of it and we got new rock. So now we have new rock. It's less tan and more gray than the old rock. There you go. Those of you who don't live in the desert, this is the excitement you'll have to talk about if you do live here. High Desert Who Dad, perfect timing. It says high desert dollars for the low desert. Fine. I'm with you. Tobias says, hey, Phil, I really appreciate everything you do for us with the videos and live shows. Which makes you happier, the Friedman Small Box or the Soldano SL30? Asking for a friend. That's a great question. And I say great because it's always weird how you can phrase the same question differently and I'll have a different response. What I like better, what can I use more, or what do I enjoy more? Without a doubt, I enjoy the Soldano SLO more. Not even comparable. They're not even the same league. Like if you were going to grade it off how big my smile gets playing something, it's going to be the Soldano. But if you told me which one of those two amps could I keep, if I could only keep one, it would definitely be the Friedman Small Box. And which amp do I use daily? It's the Small Box. And which amp do I record with mostly? It's the Small Box. It's funny. The Soldano is literally a self-indulgent go back to my childhood guitar. It's like, well, I say guitar, like that RG565 into the Soldano. And it's like, man, it's like I might as well have hair again. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. Well, actually, better yet, I remember wanting this. That's the really thing. When that stuff was cool, I had a crate and and an Aria Pro because I couldn't afford an Ibanez, and I sure as hell couldn't afford a Soldano. Yeah, and that's just, it takes you back. It takes you back. So yeah, that's where I would say, what do I enjoy more? The Soldano. Which is why I think a lot of us bought those mini Soldanos, because it was perfect. It was like, okay, get it out of your system. Now you have a little Soldano, play it for a second. The sad thing is the Soldano is probably one of my least played amps out of all my amps, by far. And think about this, I don't even have a profile of it in my Kemper, which I have almost all my amps profiled in the Kemper for use. I just don't have that amp used, profiled. So I just, like I said, it's when I pull it out, it's about just some me time, some reminiscing. And if you're curious, which you wouldn't be, what do I play on the Soldano? Queensryche. Very badly, by the way, but I play Queensryche. And the reason I play my Ibanez is because I can't find, and I say I can't afford, that's part of it, but finding it would be the first problem. I can't find an ESP that I want from that era, like a Mirage. I mean, they're just hard to find. You can go LTD, but I want, I want that guitar for some reason. I want the guitar, and I want the Soldano, and I want to play Queensryche riffs. There you go. Roger that with the D, if I don't lose my voice. Man. By the way, I tell myself on podcast days not to talk all day. I had a Zoom call today, and then I did voiceover editing for a video because I have to deal with some stuff next week, and so I have to work Sunday and Monday, and so today I couldn't take the day off. So that's why I'm losing my voice. What is the trick for lowest action without major buzz or fretting out? What is the trick? What is the trick to do it? I don't know. Is there a trick? How to get the lowest action without buzz? I mean, it's not a trick. So let's start there. I think that's the term you tripped me up with, was what's the trick? It's not a trick. Perfectly leveled frets. That is 100%. That's going to decide whether or not you have perfect or have low action with no buzz. It isn't going to guarantee it, but it's impossible without it. So perfectly leveled frets. It has to be done. Which is why fretwork is so important to a guitar, which is why I talk about it so much in reviews, because, like I said, I have the hindsight of going to factories. I was invited to the Music Man factory and to Gibson's factory when I was at Gearfest, and so hopefully those will translate into those things. By the way, like a Pitbull, I'm going to keep hitting those companies because I want to go. I want to see an update on Gibson's factory because I haven't seen it, and I definitely want to go to the Music Man factory. So I'll be sharing that with you if I get to go. And my point is that what I like about factory tours and stuff is that a lot of you guys get to see something, including me. We get to see something that we know, like the kitchen. Go into the restaurant, go in the kitchen, and what I like about it is, I use this analogy a lot when I'm not with you guys, but with companies. Is like, if you go to Cortec, they'll spend 20 minutes on fretwork. Crown level, set the frets, 20 minutes, 3 guitars per hour. You go to Fender Custom Shop, they'll do it in 30, 35 minutes. So 2 an hour is the ideal goal, right? It takes a little longer, two a guitar. So the difference between good frets and great frets is 15 minutes, according to those factories, if you're using that logic. That's not how they would talk, but that's how I'm kind of illustrating it. And the same thing goes, which is why I think these reviews are important. The reviews I do is not to be self-indulgent. It's not that. It's just that, and it's not all reviews, by the way. Why these are important is because this is the factories. This is them seeing their work presented to you guys. And who does it right? Who does it most consistent? Who does it wrong? And what does that really take? And the sad truth is, a lot of times it doesn't take much more. It takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes takes you from good to great. And that sounds so easy. Everybody's like, well, then do it. But the difference is 3 guitars an hour versus 2 guitars an hour. That's a big difference. So to answer your question about low action with no buzz, it's about great frets. And that's why certain brands are known for having great frets. Players who like low action go to them, and that's why it's important, because what happens over time, they get a little more lax and then their fretwork's not that great. And then those players, and then people recommend their guitars and they're not that great because they're not what they used to be. Okay. Let's do some. And again, if you're talking to me, put the question mark at the beginning so I know it's to me. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, fun. Michael says G&L tribute or Fender player? Fender player. Right? Yeah, I like the Fender player series. Now, keep in mind, I want to be clear. Not because I think the quality is going to be better than one or the other. In fact, my experience with Fender for the last couple years has been horrible. I have had horrible experiences for the last couple of years with all Fender guitars I've touched. It's like everything is coming out of the factory, not so great. But the design is great and the overall materials is fine. So I feel like if I got a G&L tribute and I got a Fender player, I kind of feel like they're going to come out of the box about the same quality. Maybe a little bit different, but about the same. But I think I could dial in the Fender player and be very happy. And I think there's just something, I think a Fender made in Mexico is real Fender. And I think a G&L tribute is import G&L. I know that sounds silly, and it's fine if you don't think the same way, but that's how I look at it. I've said this many times. If I could have a guitar and be happy for life, and it had to be affordable, I would probably gravitate toward a Mexican-made Strat. That would probably be my go-to to find just a good one and just play that. So. And the reason I say that is because I've owned a bunch. In fact, I've had one as recently, I've had them on this channel until the recent last year or two. I finally had to pare down some stuff, and that was some of the stuff that went. And I don't feel like the higher end Fenders that I currently own are better than that Made in Mexico Strat in any way. It's just, like I said, as your collection kind of, refines itself, you get more exotic guitars. And I've said this, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, which is expensive guitars are about your ego. It's about having something unique. It's about having something different. It's about saying, oh, this is what I have and you don't have that. And, it's kind of pretentious, and I don't think of myself as a pretentious person, but I'm really into guitars. Like, I would never seek that out in clothing or jewelry and cars. It's just not, if you gave me millions and millions of dollars, it's just not what I would do with it. But as a guitar freak, I love having something that no one has. I love being able to say, like, oh, I have this unique thing. I love a guitar. I love a guitar with a story. That's more important than anything else. And it doesn't even have, and then therefore it's even really tough because it's not expense anymore. It's the story, what is unique about this guitar and why I have it and what's interesting about it and why no one else can have this particular guitar, which could be because I modded it, because a friend built it for me, because, they did a limited color. Somebody asked earlier, by the way, I caught the question, but again, I see them and I can't get to all of them because I'm thinking. Somebody asked me, they know I have my Blue Sparkle Charvel DK24 was painted, and they said, what was a good price to have a Sparkle paint job done? They were quoted $500 for doing it. I didn't pay for it. My buddy Brian, who owns Paint Huffer, which is the company that makes pretty much all the flake for everybody who does quality sparkle work, he had it painted for me as a gift. He wanted to paint a guitar for me. You guys remember the story. He wanted to paint a guitar for me as a gift. He was a customer in my store, and he just always liked it. And I don't want to get into it, but I did something at the store for him, and he always thought that was really great. And he wanted to kind of like pay me back. And so when I did the Great Guitar Build-Off, he's like, I want to paint a guitar for you. And I said, oh, this is perfect timing because I'm doing this build-off for charity. And I said, I'd like you to paint the guitar for this charity. And he was happy to do it. But then he came up to me later and said, I'm really happy to be part of the charity. I'm really happy that we raise money for everything. And I'm really happy to be doing this. But he really wanted to I wanted to paint a guitar for you. He goes, because that was kind of like the thing. I wanted to, I kind of, he's like, I wanted to do something for you. And you kind of like, you kind of like, and I want to do something for charity too. So he said, let's paint another guitar. And I said, That's the DK24. So the answer to the question is I didn't pay for it. My understanding is if I did, it would be $700 to $900 for that paint job because it was custom done. And it's not just sparkle. It has like hollow graphics in it. It has my graphics, but you can only see them at certain angles and stuff. So I would say 500 probably sounds reasonable nowadays. I mean, it's going to be hard because everybody's going to want to get their labor out of it. And, you know, painting a guitar is work. It's work. You got to sand everything down. It's not easy. Now, when I say not easy, I mean labor intensive. So in case there's a painter watching now, I always love it when somebody does something like, I do it every day. It's easy. I'm like, well, you do it every day. And that's why it's easy. It's like, you know, what's the saying I love? It's like, how long did it take you to learn to do this? Or no, how long did it take you to do this? I love that saying. That's what you get a lot when you do stuff. How long did it take you? Like that's the validation of the price. Hey, I did this. How long did it take you? It took me 20 minutes, but it took me 20 years to learn how to do it in 20 minutes. So what are we going to value here? The 20 years to get to this point or the 20 minutes it took, right? Grumpy Mike guitar. I got it right. I caught myself, Grumpy Mike. I did it. I didn't reverse it. Here's a bonus super chat for the factory tour fund. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, these tours I'll be paying for. Like the Sweetwater thing, they were nice enough to comp the travel, but these will, you know, they just invited me, so I'm sure I got to pay for everything, which is fine. It's fine. I would have paid for the Sweetwater trip too. So, but like I said, they offered to comp the airfare and the hotel. And in all fairness, I wouldn't have stayed 7 days. I would have red-eyed that thing in, done the whole day, and then flew out that night and been miserable. Jim says, hey, just got to use Fender Vintage Telly. So many great axes out there, used market for better prices now. Yeah, the used market's great. When I did the video, it's like you can't make anybody happy, right? You know, you can't make everybody happy. You can't make anybody happy. I did the what guitar would I buy for $500? And when I did that's an update video for the one I did years ago. I thought, okay, well, everybody complained that I bought a used guitar in that video. So I go, in this video, I won't be able to buy a used guitar, only new. And of course, there's comments in there like, you should have bought used. The used market's great. And I'm like, I know, I can't make anybody happy. But yeah, right now, I think the used market's great. The only thing down about the used market is not a lot of stuff. There's a lot of the same things on the used market, but not a lot of other stuff. You can tell that while people are letting go some stuff, some people are holding on to things that they know are going to be super valuable to buy again. And I think I fall into that category. There's some guitars that I'm just not feeling anymore. I don't know if they're, you know, I'm not using them and maybe I don't need them anymore and I want to let them go. But I'm so afraid that if I want them in a couple of years, I'll have to pay 2.5 times more than I sold it for. So I might as well just sit on them. I don't understand the question. I'm reading a question. I don't understand it. Do you plan on building by hand? Oh, okay. By hand. I thought, okay. Do you plan on building by hand your own guitar by your specs in the future? No, I've done that. I'm not going to do that. I have no interest to do that. The reason is because here's the downfall of all of this. It's the same thing with the pickup problem. The problem with anything that you do is this. To be successful, you don't do that anymore. So what I mean by that is this. If let's say I start building guitars. Well, as soon as I start building them and they be successful, I got to hire somebody to start building them. And then I got to manage the people that are building them. So sometimes you're like, okay, I'm just going to jump that step. And that's the thing that I find, because if you're just going to do one, you're going to do whatever you do. You're a finite resource. I'm a finite resource. That's the thing with the pickups. We're out of stock on pickups right now because, as you know, I've been traveling. There's no way I can make pickups. We're out. We are out. We just got supplies. I don't even know if I'll be able to sit down on the bench and make any for at least a couple weeks. So there's a couple weeks where we don't have anything to make for anybody, even if they wanted it. And that's not really fair because it's not really, that supply and demand's not really cool, right? It's not like there's so many people that want them. There's probably a dozen people right now that are looking for some, and I can't make them because I don't have time. So that's the same thing with guitar. And I know you were kind of talking about building a guitar for myself, but I have guitars I absolutely love. Anybody who's watching this channel for any length of time, some of you guys have been here since the beginning, the absolute beginning, since the first video. If you look at my first 5 videos, the 2 guitars I use in those videos, I still have to this day, this very day, which is my Copper Strat and my Mira. And the funny thing about that is I still play them every day, except for, well, not every day, that's kind of exaggerating, but I play them often and they're still my main guitars. Except for some reason, I've kind of shifted to the Kiesel over the Copper Strat. The Copper Strat sits there in the corner, and I can tell you I haven't touched it in a little while because I play, but I have it replaced, in other words. I don't know why, I just like the Copper Delos more. Something about it. And I think it's also because of hindsight. I had the hindsight of what I liked about one, but the Mira I still play all the time. So I'm not really looking for a perfect guitar. I don't have any wants or needs for guitars. Like I don't have anything like I wish a guitar did this. You know, rock stars are like, I played all these guitars and I always wanted a guitar that felt like this and no one ever made it. No, I have guitars and I think they're perfect. So Jim says, that's me. I've been watching from day one. How bored am I? I don't know. they maybe bored. I don't know. I think it's you know what it is. I usually I like to go for the joke like that, but I think it's just we're passionate about what we like, man. This is it. What I can tell you is some of the things I learned in the last couple weeks was about my channel through some analytics. Excuse me, my throat's going dry. Some analytics and stuff is that some channels are seeing a change in their view patterns and stuff, and it's because there was a big bump during COVID, and a lot of people got into guitar and started watching some of these channels. But this channel is so niche of a niche. It's like you don't have to be into guitar to like this channel. You have to be into guitar, and then you have to really want to know about guitars. It's like, you know, it really dives down. So I guess the viewership here is really into this subject to the point where it seems to not change, and it's why over the years the channel's held this same momentum. Think about this: during the peak, I didn't really peak. The channel didn't shoot up, but during the dips, I didn't dip. It's like it stays pretty consistent because I think there's a pretty steady group of us here that just like to talk about guitars. All right, let's button this show up. Let me grab a couple last questions. I just saw one pop in. So it's the last super chat. It's going to be from Kevin. Kevin says, more for the factory tour fund. This would be great for the channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. You don't have to give me a factory tour fund. I appreciate that though. But like I said, I think the factory tour, there's certain things that I get to do. Don't get me wrong. I love sharing with you guys. There's certain things I do because I get to like doing it and then, you know, do it on the channel. And there's just things I would do without the channel, and touring factories is like, that's it for me. That's like Disneyland for me on steroids. But I appreciate it. Music Therapy Lad says, I recently visited a local builder, Zon Basses. Yeah, I know him. I know Joe. Basses and Map Guitars in Livermore. Is that how it is? Livermore? Right here in my hometown. Yeah. Amazing basses, Zon Basses. Fantastic. I've owned a few. That's what I was playing for years before I found my Fender bass that I just fell in love with. Some of the best basses ever made, Zon basses, without a doubt. In fact, I used to play only 5 strings for years, and I played Zon 5 strings, and that's kind of why I'm not playing Zons anymore. Is I found a Fender 4 string, and I always had a 5, and for some reason I just one day switched back to 4. And then I just been 4 ever since. I don't even currently own a 5-string bass. Brian wants to know where you can't hear me sipping the beverage. I don't know. Logo hat, no sipping water. I think we, kind of like you. I think I played that out. Those guys probably that are annoyed weren't even around anymore. Thomas says, do you or did you refinish guitars? No, that's not. Like I said, I don't do paint work. That's something I don't do, which is very common in our industry, especially with builders. A lot of builders specifically do certain things, but not other things. They usually have somebody do paint. There are some that do it all, but not a lot. It's not as common as you would think. It's a noiseless cup. Nice. Yeah. Tessie's Rob's saying that Zon is top shelf. Absolutely, like I said, absolutely. So I took lessons from a bass player here in town named Ray Rindo, who's fantastic, and he was a artist with Zahn, and then maybe I have it backwards. He was an artist with Fender first, and then I got a Jazz Deluxe, which is what I currently have, just like his. Fell in love with it. Then he got a Zahn. He became a Zahn clinician artist, and then I got a Zahn. And then I think he's still a Zahn. I think he has and he's, by the way, I think he had a short scale Zahn made. And now you guys make me want a Zahn again. They're just expensive now. Sean Brooks says, "Hey Phil, in my personal experience, bedroom players tend to go for more expensive gear and more gear in general than gigging musicians outside of rock stars. Do you think that's true?" No, no. That's you know what it is. I think that's a great. I mean, collectors, people who buy things, are going to buy more expensive stuff, but that's not really the thing. Think of it this way. It's not like gigging musicians don't buy. Well, first of all, there's financial restraints, right? I mean, you know, you got to understand, if you're a doctor and you're making $600,000 a year, your ability to buy, you know, a $7,000 guitar is much different than a gigging musician making $65,000 a year, you know, combined off 1099s. So there's a practicality to it that you have to address. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But most gigging musicians that I know, that legitly gigging musicians, because again, well, let's be clear. When we talk about a gigging musician, there's musicians who do gigs. That's sounds the same, but to me it's different. There's musicians who are like, oh, okay, we're playing this bar next week, and they have day jobs, and whether anybody comes to this bar is you know, not important. There's value in there, and I think that's great. But a gigging musician to me is someone who's like, I feed my children, I pay my bills off of what I make off playing music. They have a very, very focused a way of doing things. For instance, where you would see my channel is a perfect example. If you look at the way I do stuff in my personal YouTube arena, my expense is very focused when I talk about my SD cards, my cameras, the lighting I buy. All that stuff is very practical. It's like, what's the best I can get for the cheapest price? Because that's ultimately every penny I spend. That's money I can't make now. It's just like any other business. Your expenses are deducted from what your income is. So a lot of times they're going to focus that way. They're going to buy the gear. But more importantly, musicians, as we talked about earlier today in the show, gigging musicians get a lot of theft. And they don't want expensive stuff because it's not only gets stolen, it sucks, it's actually more likely to get stolen. So they go for more practical product, and that makes sense to me. But a lot of times what you don't understand is a lot of the gigging musicians I know will have nice gear, but they don't take it out. They leave it. And because of that reason, they don't want it stolen. It's not a guitar thing, by the way. I told you I have friends that are mechanics, and they have a beautiful garage full of Snap-ons, and then they go to work with their tools they've had for 20 years, and they're not bringing all their Snap-ons to work. They don't need an $80 wrench disappearing. You know what I mean? There's reasons why people do what they do. Rock stars, I think, are the absolute worst to consider when you consider expensive gear. I don't think anybody gets more expensive gear than they do, and I kind of think the reason they buy the indulgent high-priced gear is because gear has no value to them because it can be given to them for free. One thing I've learned doing this gig for a few years is I have and again, everybody will have a different opinion on this, and I suggest you seek them out, but my opinion is very straightforward. I don't believe any musicians are paying for any gear. There's no way. There's no way. I've seen if you can just get a YouTube channel and you get some momentum going, the amount of free stuff that's thrown at you just at any level is insane. And what I mean insane is it's what I pictured musicians getting, that amount of gear. So a lot of musicians are getting their gear for free, and that's great because it's something they do. And again, it's back to the 20 years to get 20 minutes, right? Yeah. Are they getting free gear? Yeah. But what do they have to do for the last 20 years to get to that point, to get to the free gear? It has value. But the important part of this is if some company is willing to give you a guitar, you find that you really want to buy a unique, expensive vintage guitar, you know what I mean? Because that's something that no one's going to give you, right? One of the funny things was somebody was asking me about my Boss pedal collection, and I was collecting Boss pedals, and I'd stopped, and everybody's asked why, and I said I kind of got to the end of what I could get without buying the expensive ones. But one of the reasons that led me to want to collect Boss pedals was one of the things I found very interesting doing this gig was every expensive, crazy boutique pedal you can think of, somebody would send to the channel for free. They just send it unsolicited. We call it unsolicited. It shows up in your mailbox, hoping that you would do a video about it. And then I go, oh, so somebody was sending a $300 pedal for free that I don't know what it is. But there's no way Boss would do that. So then I started valuing Boss pedals over boutique pedals. Because to me, it was like, okay, I can get blah, blah, blah pedals sent to me out of a garage in Nebraska, but I can't get a Boss pedal. And that's how the value equation works. So I think that's part of it. Rock stars tend to buy the exotic stuff for that reason. But yes, hobbyists will buy a lot of stuff, which is why they need value in our industry, because without the hobbyists buying this stuff, this industry would not do well, because there's not a lot of people. You need this habitual guitar buyers to sustain this market that they've created. So it's going to be a bloodbath if it ever changes. It's going to be absolutely devastating. If the average guitar player goes down to like 2 guitars, you're going to watch half these businesses go out of business, because it's not really a new growth business. You know, it's not the same. It's not like for instance, it's not like every day most companies are selling a new high-end guitar because somebody just took up guitar. They're selling another high-end guitar because a new guitar player or a guitar player has bought their 5th or 6th guitar. It's why it works that way. And so that's why I always kind of like champion that, especially when I talk to manufacturers, because the manufacturers seem to always very focus on whether or not professionals buy their guitars or not. No, I'm sorry. Whether professionals play their guitars they were given for free. In fact, so you know, one of the things that I have to deal with that it's a very weird on my world is I do a lot of Zoom calls with companies in which the validation they're giving me is this, we gave this guitar player and this guitar player guitars and they play our guitars. And I'm like, it's great. But ultimately, I think it's more impressive that you sold more guitars to more guitar players than it is that you gave guitar players away to, high-profile guitar players. That's just my opinion. And then, I know, I even closed out the screen. Let me see if I can find it. I said no more super chats, but I saw one pop in, and it was Jack. So I'll do Jack, and then we'll do Jack's question, and then we'll call it. Thoughts on the Godin multi-act nylon string guitar? I think you're probably talking about the new one too, so I'll talk about both. Would love a review. I am a classical electric guitar player looking for a nylon string that's easier to play. My buddy Larry Mitchell plays one, and there's a new one that they just came out with. I saw at the NAMM show this year. I love the Godin multi-act nylon guitar. Definitely a guitar I would get. I actually did this weird thing. I had a nice classical guitar, a really nice one, and I sold it right around or before COVID to buy a Godin multi-act classical, and then didn't do it. I don't even know why. I just didn't do it. So you're asking for a review? Yeah, you know what? I would love to do that. I think I was apprehensive because you guys talk about Godin guitars and on the channel, and I was trying to buy a Godin that I already done the A6, and I was trying to find something a little bit more different than that. And this guitar is kind of in that same vein, but I love it. Larry plays this all the time. It sounds amazing. If you haven't seen Larry Mitchell play his Godin multi-act classical, man, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic guitar. Okay. On that note, thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with me this Friday. Thank you guys for supporting what happened last week with the channel Chaos. You guys were great for hopping on and keeping this going. Thank you so much for watching the videos. If you guys look forward, I hope you could look forward to this week's videos. They should be a little bit different, a little bit fun, I hope. And I'll, of course, have a happy 4th of July if you're here in the United States. And until next Friday, thank you so much for the time you spent with me. Until the next time, know your gear.